So Briahna Joy Gray really got into it with her co-host Robbie over on the show. Rising. Looks like there's been some bubbling resentment underneath the surface for quite a while here. Certainly appears like that as an outsider looking in on this. But this moment here went viral because Briahna's fed up, and then Robbie in turn is even more fed up, and he tries to cut the break, but the argument goes on. But this is a masterclass in deconstructing right-wing garbage. Let's watch.
I don't know that most Republicans feel like the Democratic Party is actually trying to get their votes.
You heard Joe Biden. He put ads out saying Nikki Haley voters come to me. He put an ad out saying
policies that they support. The Democratic Party has moved
his border
far
policy?
to the left.
His
over
border
time.
policy.
Overall, if you go on most issues, maybe not the border. If you go on most issues, the Democratic Party has moved way.
Robbie, that's just totally not true. There's nothing about that that's true. The idea that the Democrats have moved left, I wish they've moved left. A lot of us on the left are begging for them to move left. On healthcare, they haven't moved left. On wages, they haven't moved left. On foreign policy, they certainly haven't moved left. On the border, they certainly haven't moved left. Sure, there's a handful of issues where they just did what's supposed to be basic democratic policies, like the NLRB, for example. Right? They brought 700,000 manufacturing jobs back. This is like basic democratic politician stuff, or at least it should be. The idea that they've moved left, God, he's got online brainworms. That's my takeaway. His brain is just poisoned by dumb online debates.
If you go on most issues, maybe not the border. If you go on most issues, the Democratic Party
has moved way more
of
policy. In what way? It's been worse on unions.
Look at charts.
On what, cultural policy? It's not policy. That's just vibes. Oh, you hang a rainbow flag out outside the White House? What's that actually doing for poor and working class gay
Green
people
New
in this
Deal,
country?
etc.
What? Where's there a Green New Deal? Did Joe Biden pass a Green New Deal?
He said Green New Deal. They ran away from that at 5,000 miles an hour. It never happened. It's never going to happen. And Green New Deal, bro, they moved left. Most of the Democratic politicians shit on the idea of a Green New Deal or don't bring it up at all. Never mind not voting on it and not passing it. Oh my God, this is like shooting fish in a barrel for Brie, man.
Did Joe Biden pass a Green New Deal?
They all talk in support of it.
Where? When? When did they vote in support of it? When did they actually act and push it? When did you see a single Biden ad talking about how important it is for him to pass a Green New Deal? Never, none.
He talked about the Green New Deal all the
Joe
time.
Biden, when he was campaigning. The Joe Biden agenda has been the Joe Manchin agenda, and they're frankly proud of it.
Republicans can take comfort in that the Democrats don't accomplish all of the lofty societal transformations that they promised.
Lofty societal transformations, an overwhelming majority of Americans want there to be a wealth tax. This is not a partisan issue. The overwhelming majority of Americans want there to be universal health care. This is not a fringe leftist issue. I just did a radar running down.
Issue.
When 70% of Americans
mass
support
confiscation
something,
of wealth from other people is
I'm not doing this with you. When
You can't say it's a fringe issue immediately after she correctly points out it's an overwhelming majority of Americans, like 70%, that want a wealth tax. You can't then say, well, that's fringe. No, what you're saying is you personally don't like it, but you have the fringe position by definition. That's how numbers work. Oh my God. I'm frustrated for her watching this.
70% of Americans
mass
support
confiscation
something,
of wealth from other people is
I'm not doing this with you. When 70%
okay,
of
I don't want to do it. More Rising after this. Goodbye. Go.
When 70% of Americans
Oh my God. What a bitch ass move, man. That is the most bitch ass shit I've ever seen in my life. This is like, look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in this sense. It looks like his brain is just not functioning that well on this day. And I can say that because I've gone through that too. Some days you wake up, you're tired, you didn't have enough caffeine, you didn't sleep enough last night. You know, I'm doing a show in the morning. I've never been a morning person, ever. My brain works way better the later it gets in the day, right? And sometimes my brain just doesn't work. It just doesn't. And you know, you're speaking, but you're just sort of going through the motions. You're not really connecting with your own words. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's in a moment like this. But for you to just, like, you just shut down because you have no logical responses. Cut the break, go. That's weak, man. You know that's weak. That's as weak as it gets, bro. By the way, it continues. I love how they start like they're going to cut to break, and then they're just like, okay, Briahna's still talking. Just keep it rolling. Here we go.
When 70%
I don't want to do it. More Rising after this. Goodbye. Go.
When 70% of Americans...
By the way, the whole point of the show is to debate. So you can't, like, get triggered that there's a debate. This makes no sense. The whole point of the show is you're more on the right, she's more on the left, you guys are going to debate. And then you actually start debating. I don't like this. I'm gone. Okay, then go fucking do a different show. Go talk about sports or some shit.
See, it's not fringe. And you can't just sit there and say it's fringe because you personally don't like it, Robbie. 70% of Americans support the policy. So my point is this.
70% of Americans support what?
universal health care?
That, depending on I'm sure most Americans think that healthcare should be provided to people. How we actually pay for that and what the policy. Ask them how much of them want Obamacare or socialized medicine, then they get
We've been
very little
talking
support.
about billions of dollars going out the door for Israel.
He's such a fucking nuanced troll here. Well, if you word the poll a very specific way where you say socialized medicine, then actually they're against it. Yeah, but that poll is loaded and poisoning the well up front. If you ask people it in a neutral way, they side with universal health care.
It's something you don't agree with, but at no point did you say, how can we pay for that? Not once.
What do you... I don't
We've been talking about, but you haven't
to
questioned how we're going to pay for it. You said we shouldn't pay for it, but there's an expectation that when it comes to military spending, of course we can pay for it.
I don't think we can pay for it. No, we're running up. No, we cannot afford to do the military spending
about delivering for the health and welfare of the American people. That phrase comes up again.
That's not true at all.
Out of nowhere.
That's just absolutely misrepresenting my position. I do not think we can afford the military spending we're doing at all.
I would bet every dollar in my bank account that you haven't said, how are we going to pay for that one time in a year?
How are we going to pay for it? We can't pay for it, and we should. I don't want to raise taxes to pay for the military spending.
You haven't said, how are we going to pay for it? Not a single time.
I mean, you're right. I've been preoccupied with, yes, we should not pay for it, but we also can't afford to do it. And
well, how about you stick to we should not pay for Medicare for all? Stick with that then. Sit here and stand by the notion that you think that we should not pay for Medicare for all. But most Americans, America, the country, our government should not pay for Medicare for all. That seems to be your stance as you framed it with respect to a bunch of other expenditures.
Right. But I don't want the massive bloat that we have in our education and health system and other to impact whether people can get care, like in other countries that have those arrangements where people wait in lines for care for weeks and months and years. In fact, coming to America.
Oh my God. There's immense wait lines here too, bro. They just do a wallet biopsy before you get your care. If you're wealthy, you're more likely to get it fast. If you're not, you might be fucked. The idea, like he's trying to use the dumbest argument ever to make the case that the U.S. healthcare system is actually better than others. That's absurd. It's absurd. Every single objective, empirical way of measuring it disproves what he's saying. Don't take my word for it. Look at the World Health Organization. Look at the Commonwealth Fund study. It is very clear. We get draxed in almost every single way you measure. And by the way, South Park just did a piece on navigating the U.S. healthcare system and health insurance, and it is hilarious, and it is spot on.
The care they can't get in Canada, the system you profess.
Yes, I wish we had healthcare like Canada. I wish we had healthcare like Israel.
Canadians wish they had healthcare like America. But
I wish we had healthcare like Israel, where people don't
only the super mega rich ones, you prick.
Die in the street or have to get extremely expensive emergency care that average Americans have to pay for anyway because they can't get preventative treatment. I think that we're the richest country in the history of the world, and there's a relationship between the visceral pushback that you get when you start bringing up Medicare for all and a wealth tax and how popular they are and how much
cost the American government more than the military, but the military is also bankrupting us. I agree, and I would lop it in half overnight. But you can't just end foreign military spending or even domestic military spending would not bring our budget in line. It's the entitlement system that is causing us ruinous debt that we will pass on to our children.
Oh, shut the fuck. In other words, you got to get rid of Medicare. You got to get rid of Medicaid. You got to get rid of Social Security. That's where all the money's actually being spent. Hey, don't look at the fact that these are phenomenally successful anti-poverty programs. Don't look at the fact that people paid into it and they're getting back what they're owed. Don't look at the fact that these programs poll overwhelmingly popular. Don't look at any of that. That's where you got to cut. Okay, thank you, fucking Lindsey Graham, Robbie. Right? Like, how are you any different than fucking Lindsey Graham or Mitt Romney or Chuck Grassley? This is just down the line, standard conservative republicanism. And this idea of like, oh, I'm going to represent the anti-establishment right. Anti-establishment, my fucking ball sack.
And how much goes into preventing those perspectives from being reflected on a program like The View, and where someone like Charlamagne comes on and says...
So now they bring it back to what the original conversation was about, which is Charlamagne reversing course on Biden. And basically, they were trying to arm twist him into endorsing Biden, and he wouldn't do it. And that's what the point of this segment is. Look, there's actually a really interesting takeaway from this. It is possible to do a show that has a left-right dynamic where, in theory, the casual viewer might say, hey, they actually seem to agree on a bunch of stuff. Look, they're both criticizing Joe Biden. They both don't like Joe Biden. So even the left and the right can get along and agree that they don't like Joe Biden. But here's the problem. That's kind of misleading, because the specifics, the devil is always in the details, and the specifics are wildly different. So, for example, in a left-right show, yeah, you could both bash Joe Biden, but why does the left-winger not like Joe Biden, and why does the right-winger not like Joe Biden? Well, one example that we've seen a lot recently is the left is screaming at Joe Biden, stop arming and funding a genocide. Stop greenlighting the carpet bombing of babies. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. That's the left-wing perspective. What's the right-wing perspective? I'm really against Joe Biden because he's not standing by Israel enough and not sending enough money and weapons to Israel and not greenlighting enough bombings of babies. And so fundamentally, even though at the surface level it might look like, hey, look, they agree, they're bashing Joe Biden, there is no agreement there at all. And that's why I actually love this conversation, because it shows you that surface level bullshit is just bullshit. Oh, anti-establishment left and anti-establishment right agreeing. They're not agreeing. In fact, they wildly disagree, and you have to get down to the meat of it. And the point Briahna was making is like, you always say, how are you going to pay for it when it comes to Medicare for all and things of that nature? You never say, how are you going to pay for it when it's for war? And he's like, no, I still, don't want to pay for that either because of the debt or something. Okay, but then everybody on the right needs to stop making that dumb argument. Well, let's not send money to Ukraine because how the fuck can we got people here that need help? But it's like, you guys don't support any of the bills that are actually to help people here. So stop saying that. Stop saying that. Say, I have a principled disagreement with any and all government spending, because at least that's more honest. Don't use the argument, stop spending there so we can spend here, when you don't support spending here. So there's a lot of like slimy, disingenuous arguments used from this so-called anti-establishment right. What you're seeing here is there ain't no anti-establishment bone in his body, bro. And by the way, can't handle the debate when you actually get into the specifics and gets pummeled into the ground. And it's basically like Briahna is shooting fish in a barrel. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.